Hello.
Happy Friday, Eric. How
Ha-
are you?
Happy Friday. I'm quite full, actually.
Are you keeping it simple? Shout out to Yo-Yo Ma playing
Yeah,
that shaker tune.
yeah. I'm a big fan of Yo-Yo Ma. I've got a record of Yo-Yo Ma. Yeah.
Yes, I for a presidential inauguration, I went there on a very cold January day, and I heard him play. It was pretty amazing.
Lovely. So you weren't willing to pay to listen to Yo-Yo Ma. You just went to a free event. Got it.
Basically.
Okay,
So,
got it.
so happy Thanksgiving, post Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving?
Not too bad,
What do you
actually.
what do you what do you usually do? What's your family's traditions or friends' traditions?
We used to go back in the day. I'll say BC, before children.
Mhm.
We used to go to my uncle's house in Virginia, and then when the kids came, it was a little bit more hard to travel, and we started just, you know, staying around the house. Usually every other year we travel, go somewhere, maybe to Florida. Sometimes we fry turkey. Yeah.
Mm. Turkey fryer. Yeah, we've hosted Thanksgiving maybe twice. I'm a briner. I'm a big briner
Ah,
and roaster. But often we'll go to Boston. We'll go to Connecticut. My wife's side of the family. So that's what we did this week. We drove up to Connecticut. So
nice.
good times. Now I got to get back down to Atlanta.
Okay, that's one of the worst parts about Thanksgiving is the
Yes.
drive back and the flight back is like never ever an
No.
easy trip.
No. No, well, if you are traveling today, and you need something to do and you're watching this, we are going to talk about leftovers.
Yeah, that's right. And if you are not busy making all your purchases on your Black Friday, which at this point I don't understand Black
Oh,
Friday.
people are
Yeah,
waiting to Cyber Monday. I mean, Black Friday starts for way earlier anyway. It doesn't.
weeks in
It's kind of
advance. Yeah.
moot, yeah.
I,
But
I always like to make fun of marketers who like finally send the email, after waiting 6 months to contact your entire customer base, and you finally send an email, a week or two before Thanksgiving, and you say something along the lines of like, "Hey, it's Black Friday sale," and it's like, "Who are you?"
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, we're all going to be dealing with some leftovers. If you had plenty, or you're given plenty, or be putting things away, freezing things. We'll talk more about Thanksgiving leftovers, but Eric and I thought, why don't we, serve some news that we didn't serve the first time around, sort of things that were left over that didn't make it into some episodes. October, November were pretty busy months industry wise. There was a lot of stuff to cover, and so we kind of organized a few leftovers. We'll just chat about for a little bit. Feel free to share, in the comments, other leftovers that we left out. Pun intended, or double left intended. I don't know. That's
We'll
something,
work on
right?
that. We'll work on that for next year. Yeah.
We'll workshop that. We'll workshop that. Yeah, all of our jokes go through a rigorous process. Okay. Well,
Oh
let's
gosh.
let's let's start it off with some of the warm stuff, the fuzzy,
Mm.
good, positive things. We talk about a lot of that stuff on here. Um, I did want to. I did want to talk about in this last several weeks, there were some folks that really stood out and kind of called out the multifamily industry. Um, Danny Knowles and Shawan Alexander. Um, they both were sharing their stories about people, what makes the industry go round. Danny talked about how it's people, not products or processes. It's in the end, it's the people. And Shawan from Bizzuto had been on a medical leave, and she just said a big thank you to everybody for kind of being sharing, love, sharing gifts, sharing well wishes in our industry, and kind of just talked about what the industry means to her. Um, I don't know if there was any, warm stories that you found or you remember from the last few weeks. I do have a couple more, but you're muted or something. You're muted or something.
Oh well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ashley James could not attend OpTech this year because she spent time with family.
Mhm.
I think she did a nice little video kind of recapping that. But sometimes you can't make it, right? And you have a little bit of that FOMO. You want to be with some of your industry friends, and that happens throughout the year. But I think this time of year is from the toughest, right? Sometimes kids get sick, parents get sick,
Mhm.
spouse gets sick, whatever it is. And it's tough. It's tough to do it all, right? And we're trying to push things over the finish line here in Q4. And it's really a good time to take a step back and go, you know what? I'm going to live to fight another day and make it to 2026.
Yeah.
So let's just cut the engines off. Maybe don't attend every Las Vegas conference. Just spend time with family. Yeah.
Here, here. I'm for that. Something else is I don't know if you've had the pleasure of meeting Kara Rafferty in person. She was honored with a Heart of the Industry Award from APTS of NY. So, I couldn't think of a more deserving person, honestly. Like she sort of she cares about mentorship. She cares about, kind of paying things forward. She cares about, meeting people, going out, and introducing people to each other, being a connector. There's a lot of things that she's done for the industry. And I thought there's probably other organizations that have similar awards, but that definitely popped up. And we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I do want to shout out um, Alyssa. Gosh, I'm going to crush your last name here. Crinieri with Cosign. She just recently moved over to Cosign. She had been doing her Winter Wednesdays, her videos, and they motivated me. I really enjoyed watching her content. And she admitted, we had a chat during OpTech. She admitted that she's, been dealing with some changes, both personal and career, and but she plans on picking it back up. And that kind of stuff I really love and appreciate.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. This is the stuff, the big news that we didn't plate, the things that we kind of kept in there. We may have posted about it, but we didn't actually talk about it. One of the things is just from last week, which is a couple different integrations. Entrada integrated with PayScore as part of their workflow process. Yardi integrated with Belong and Ren and Gain. Again, building out the partnerships in our industry. So those were some headlines that we missed. I have some more, but do you have any other headlines
I
or
mean,
things that you remember?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, Justin, is deciding, our editorial, what goes
Mhm.
into what we produce every week. Um, every week, I go back to the drawing board and say, like, how do we make sure that we don't miss big content that
Mhm.
comes out, or how do we not miss the stuff between the lines, right? How do we miss some of those
Yeah.
stories that are really impactful but aren't
Mhm.
necessarily like the press
Mean.
release
Yeah. Yeah.
mainstream newsworthy? Yeah.
It's a balancing act for sure to be able to look at, so that you have a 30-minute show that isn't full of like acquisitions and partnerships because we probably no one would watch us. I don't think,
And
even if we
that's
made some
yeah,
jokes about it.
that's not what we're about. I mean,
No.
ultimately, what we're about is bringing the best stories and news, so that you all don't have to scroll the internet all day long on LinkedIn. And for us, we really enjoy telling those stories. So, I would say I'll have to think about some big news that we
Yeah,
didn't.
so there was
Yeah.
one headline that we captured in our and posting about it, but we didn't actually talk about it. Several weeks ago, the Washington Post covered a story where there was a $7,000 renter discrimination ruling, which involved Petra Management Group. It was one of the month's bigger legal stories. So it was basically found them guilty of renter discrimination. So again, with all of the types of screening, the types of, people trying to de-risk or prevent bad debt, you still have to balance this other side, which is someone's going to say, or someone's going to bring some class action lawsuit against you and say, hey, there was some kind of discrimination. So that was a huge story. And then one other one that I definitely remember and wrote down is Multifamily Impact Council highlighted this in their newsletter. But it was basically there was a whole kind of editorial with also some facts about how affordable housing initiatives can actually improve property performance. So that when you put some of these affordable housing actions in your property or in your communities, they're going to improve how your property performs fiscally. Juliana Stewart Lomax and Felicia Dawson contributed to that piece and had a lot to say on what they're doing in the industry.
Hmm. Very, very interesting.
Mhm.
I will say the one piece of news that I missed a couple of weeks ago was the launch of Cosign, which is offering, really guarantor type insurance. Ultimately, they ended up launching in Dallas. They had a pretty star-studded launch. Mark Cuban was there, who
Mhm.
I believe is also an investor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's move on here to events and things. So this is a very weird assortment of stuff. I have a whole list here of some random things. Now we did cover some events. We highlighted them. Obviously, we talked a lot about OPTEC. We talked about Assembly of Delegates. We highlighted some other stuff. Um, Multifamily Strategic Marketing Summit happening in March 2026, which usually is called Social Media Summit.
Hmm.
They rebranded their name. They actually announced their 2026 agenda. So it's now live. And so and registration is open. So you can actually check that out and see if you're going to go to this conference. And I believe it's still in Napa, and partake in that. So that was a piece. Something else that was interesting was Ball State University had a career day. Ball State is one of the few academic organizations that actually have degrees study in property management real estate.
Mm.
So they partnered with Buckingham Companies, a Midwest company or that based there that sort of showed up and showed out for this career day. So it's not just scientists and it's not just teachers or great other kinds of industries, tech or other kinds of initiatives. You're seeing real estate property management showing up in that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Um, no comment. I think
No.
I think I'm interested in really capturing more of the regional events on the show in
Mhm.
2026. That's something that I think that um, we could
Yeah.
do a better job of. But the challenge for us is we need that content. So if you're out there and you're responsible for the event coordination and marketing of your state or regional, you know housing events, please contact us, keep us in the
Hmm.
know. We may not be able to make it to all of those events. We do get a couple invites, of course, to participate and sometimes to speak. But if you would like to, get our attention ahead of time, we can certainly at least get you a mention. If
Hmm.
not, maybe get some great content to show off what you all are up to.
Yeah, and there was also kind of a random thing that closets trended one week. I think it was a couple weeks ago. But Scott McGee reminded operators on how important it is to walk sites number one, which everyone in the industry says. But he also said open doors. Like, open the door of that closet behind the leasing office. Open the door of that closet that's in the hallway next to the thing because there's a lot of things you can learn. He was speaking specifically on how some of the networking infrastructure, the internet and cable was set up. It wasn't pretty. Spoiler alert. That's why he was posting about it. But he was talking about opening those doors, which funnily enough, with me's Lauren Bergenholtz was also talking about opening doors, specifically closets, where she was moving from Denver or planning to move from Denver. I think in January she found a spot. Everybody, so that's breaking news here. Um, she was moving from Denver to Nashville, and one of the big things is that on the tour, no one showed leasing agents didn't show the closets. And for people,
Mm.
that's a very important thing because when she went back a second time, she realized the place she really liked didn't have enough closet space. So open those doors, show those closets. Um,
That's a
and
great
he
point. That's a
Yeah,
great point, and that just goes into, the teaching aspect. I know Mari, teaches a lot about this, but it's like, you gotta listen to the prospective resident, figure out what they're into. If they talk about having a lot of clothes, open the closet,
yeah,
show them off the nice closet.
yeah, exactly. Um, Yeah, and so there's a few other things I can, I can rattle them off here. Best places to work in multifamily has been spotlighting companies in a campaign leading up to their December 3rd awards. That's all virtual. You can join and in on that. Northmark's Andy Finn shared a very impressive year to date in 2025. This was, back almost a month ago, where they'd secured 676 million in loan volume across 47 different transactions. So even though we're not in December or January, people are already doing year to date stuff. They're looking back, kind of being retrospective. And also, Brennan Franzen highlighted a compelling market that people forget in the Pacific Northwest. People focus on Seattle, people focus on Portland. There's actually the places in the middle, Vancouver, Washington, Tacoma. Those are sometimes where the real gems are. And if you're looking for investment in those areas.
Yeah, great points.
And I don't know whose favorite this is. Yours? Data charts, analytics, mine. I don't. It's not me.
I do like a good chart, derived from accurate data. Sure.
Well, then you don't like a chart. Semi-accurate data. I mean, there's right data is clean. You got to be cleaning your data constantly. Um, uh, Jay Parsons actually shared something we didn't really talk about, where he shared an Avison Young chart that showed that those with lower cost of capital and more time to be able to do stuff, like a long-term hold with it,
Mhm.
are now positioned to be in the driver's seat for today's market. And this chart that he was sharing had kind of all the metrics to prove that point.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think something that Jay's been highlighting now that we have data in at the end of the year, right? And some of these predictions are either coming to fruition from early in 2025 or not. I think what the data is showing is that some of the tertiary markets are actually seeing some of the greatest growth, in market rent and ultimately in stabilization. So, I don't know why. I'm not going to dig down into that per se, but I know that Jay's done a great job at doing that for us.
Yeah. And I think speaking of charts, something else that we didn't talk about is Ryan Kang is I'm fanboy over his charts and infographics. I don't want to post about him as much or talk about him as much as I do, but they're always such great shares that I have to include it. A few weeks ago, he shared something on the idea of the national shrinkflation, which was
Mm.
basically positioning two different kinds of inertia in our economy. One was inflation, but then there was also the decrease of like availability for things. So it was like both things happening at a similar time. It was a very powerful chart. It's a visual thing to see. I'm not going to do it justice, but you should check it out, and look at this chart. It was awesome.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Anytime a business or a company is struggling, you shrink the hours that you're open, which
Right? Yeah.
allows you to shrink the time that employees are on site. You can shrink payroll, right? So you can look into the data and dig down deep and figure out where can we kind of trim on the bell curve, to get rid of that 10% here and 10% here, so that we only focus on the 80% that's making us business.
Yeah, and finally, we did talk about Grace Hill when they announced that they launched Performance HQ dashboard, but what we didn't really dig into was the fact that that came out of that recent acquisition of Hello Data,
Mhm.
and the Mark Rutson from the Hello Data family, now part of Grace Hill family, kind of showed exactly how that new financial analytics tab works. So there was a much greater, deeper dive on it. So if you are interested in that, you should check that post out, that information out. Follow him.
That's awesome. And we know you're in Atlanta because there's a train.
Our surprise is up. Our jig is up. You don't think I'm sitting outside on a roof in lovely Connecticut during November?
No, no. Just with just one sweatshirt on.
So I will say it to you. I've said it to you before, and I'll say it again. Suspension of disbelief. You just got to
There we
suspend the
go.
disbelief, man.
Yeah.
Acting 101. Okay. Creativity and connection. This is up your alley. So I don't know what side dish this is that AI spit out for me, but
That's a great side dish.
is it cranberries? Is it cranberries inside of like seared greens and broccoli or like green? I don't know. But the idea of being creative, coming up with something new, or thinking outside the box, for lack of a better term. Anything you notice about creativity in the last like month or so that we didn't really call out on any episode yet?
Mm. I mean, I'm starting to see more personalities in multifamily stand out. I mean, in general, I think a lot of folks in our industry are starting to produce more content. Lots of individuals, but I'm starting to see companies do it. One example is AppWork trying to go against the grain at OpTech with their booth versus Built, which has fairly large budget, right? They're trying to capture attention by creating an incredibly, you know, engaging activation.
Hmm.
Both versions are creative in their own right,
Hmm.
and both of them probably took a very similar amount of time and preparation, albeit the actual building a built cafe was time consuming,
Yeah, I
right?
don't know though, but if you've ever stacked cardboard boxes, I don't think it's an easy task unless they're really weighted well or secured well. Like there is some skill and finesse to do that. It
This
doesn't require maybe the same amount of people, sure.
this is when you don't cheap out on the masking tape. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
Well, there's been a few things, in creativity in our industry. I mean, one of the things that we didn't really call out when we were here last week, and as Eric said, we're here again. We're at the Upton, which is a gallery residential property in the heart of Atlanta in the Grant Park area. One of the things that gallery does is they bring art into the properties, and again, there are other communities, other ownership groups, other folks that do this. But I think that the name Gallery Residential, that's part of their mission. So they're bringing in different kinds of art, different kinds of exhibits so that it's part of where you live. It reminds me of the hotel chain with the penguins. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't think of it. Anyway, I'll.
Let's see here. Well, you know what, Justin?
You'll find out for me.
I think that Hotel 21C Museum Hotel 10,
Yes.
maybe.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes. There's a few of them around. I've stayed at one in Nashville before. I've stayed somewhere else, I think in Raleigh. Very cool hotels.
Yep. Yep. Known
But
for the
yeah. But I
they're
think a
known for the
creative
flock of
approach.
penguin sculptures made by the Cracking Art Group.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you for pulling up the facts. But that I did recall it. So it had an impact on me, even if I didn't
Mhm.
remember the names. Some other things that we skirted around or didn't really call out. Megan Young showcased on LinkedIn how creativity is becoming essential in the industry, specifically with her Couches to Condos initiative, which involves sort of like kind of like the bespoke ways basically of creating living spaces, and the fact that that is a differentiator. And we've talked about this even in terms of AI, which is the creative people that figure out and are using it in various ways, the ways that maybe wasn't in the first training manual, or the people that'll experiment with it a little bit. That's how you're going to start developing some of those skills and kind of get the most value out of it.
Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing more creativity in 2026.
Yeah, and I also call out Sarah Maffey and the work that she is doing and her company is doing, and saying, and she just released data, which it goes sometimes doesn't go with creativity, but she released data that said that we need more creativity and social connection in multifamily. The lack of that actually hurts our performance on a variety of levels: productivity, retention, lots of things. So it was a very interesting study. Definitely look at Sarah and her company.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it definitely helps. I mean, allowing your employees to be creative, giving them chances to do so, even honoring that, even if their creativity doesn't come to fruition, honoring it with anything from gift cards to awesome snacks, whatever. I mean, just something to give back to those employees that are trying to be creative and solve problems inside of the company, regardless of what level they're in. I think is a good way to do it.
Right. And so speaking of creativity, are there recipes either that, for Thanksgiving or things after Thanksgiving that you use that's kind of goes against the grain maybe of how you would typically eat a stuffing or yams or whatever? Anything that you do at your house?
I stopped eating meat about 5 years ago, and that forced me to have to experiment with other proteins during the holidays. And I do technically still eat fish, and come I came to learn that really fish was originally served during the first Thanksgivings. It was not turkey. Turkey was brought in later. So what I do during the holidays is, I'll make a nice, roasted salmon or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So your creative approach there is to be original by going back to the original types of food, which is kind
Yeah.
of very cool. I mean, sometimes creativity is forced out of circumstances or accidents, right?
Sure.
Like because you don't eat meat, or if you're Rachel on Friends, you accidentally throw beef into the English trifle or something. Like you end up finding things that maybe people like, maybe people don't like. I actually have a recipe for everybody. Now, I'm not gonna claim this as mine, even though it has my name on it. There is a wonderful restaurant in Boston called the Parish Cafe. They have a wonderful wrap. That I love. I hope it's still there. I haven't been in a while, but that inspired me to make this, and this came out of actually just getting tired of eating Thanksgiving stuff. Right? It's like I'm tired of eating turkey and stuffing. I'm tired of eating mashed potatoes. I'm tired of eating. So I always try to find ways of like combining elements in a new way, and this is one of the ways. It's great. It's You take a little turkey, you take some cranberry sauce, you spread it on some kind of bread or a wrap. I'm a big wrap person, but if you have leftover dinner rolls, you could make sliders this way, and then you just kind of put some type of mild cheese on it. Now, dill Havarti is kind of from the Parish Cafe recipe, but any cheese kind of works. That's sort of mild, and then you can throw any other kind of topping you want for some crunch. Microgreens or some lettuce. I'm sitting next to some chard over here that would work. If you wanted. So that's a recipe. If you are a meat eater, you could use.
It sounds great, and you have to be
Yeah.
creative with all the different versions of turkey, right? That we end up coming up with. I will say one of my favorite recipes is a Guinness and cheese
Mm.
soup.
Oh, that sounds
Um,
good. Like kind of a thing on a French onion, right?
It's kind of
Or
like a
something.
French
Yeah.
onion kick, kind of a thing, but essentially, the recipe calls for a fairly significant amount of cheese. And I've got a lovely story that my dad loves to tell, where I, wanted to make this soup. I was recently out of college, and I'd worked at a restaurant there, and that's where I kind of doctored up this recipe with some friends that worked there. And what happened is I bring this recipe that I'd never paid for before to the family and said, "Hey, let's go ahead and make this." Well, we spent about $50 in cheese alone for the recipe. So it was
So,
like, almost $100 soup. But
yeah.
it fed a family of, 12, 13, 14 people. But,
Yeah.
sometimes your recipes cost a little more.
Sometimes they do. Well, we have a few more minutes. we I know we said we're going to be dropping lots of OpTech coverage, which is true. Eric's spending all his time on the holiday editing things so that we can post them on LinkedIn. But outside of that coverage, what are some things that we missed from the last episode that we didn't really talk about, or we should shout out
Mm.
here in this space? Um, Anything that stand out to you?
I think something that's interesting about OpTech is you'll find newcomers that might be surprised that OpTech does not have a, you know, very, very large owner operator, uh, population that's there. I think we've determined that at this
Hmm.
point, it's usually about a third of the attendees are owners and operators. I think something that's important about OpTech is that it actually is important for suppliers to get together and have conversations. OpTech is very much so a place where you will find people in the supplier network
Hmm.
doing both partnerships and solidifying those relationships or starting those relationships or possibly hiring people out from under another company. A lot of that ends up happening at OpTech. And I
It
think that's
does.
something that is very interesting about the uniqueness of the timing of it, right?
Hmm.
So OpTech being in, November, towards the end of the year, most people don't want to hire in December. So you meet that person you've been interviewing, you come to an agreement in December, and then boom, there they are, come
Hmm.
January, starting fresh.
Yeah, that's definitely a play we've seen. There's been a lot of different things. I would say what's interesting too is sometimes, you have all the content, you have all the sessions, you have all the photos, you have all the big things, but sometimes the quiet conversations are the ones that end up packing the most punch, which again, like sometimes job prospecting or being offered or being entertaining other possibilities is huge. I will call out this company that I ran into. I met this fellow, Rashed, and his company is Miravel. Um,
Mhm.
it is community gardens and
Yeah,
basically hydroponic. So it's a whole product that focuses on the nature of and building community, but with a different kind of technology. So check that out. But we'll definitely keep everyone posted. We'll be dropping different contents and conversation. Feel free to share your own takes, and we can reshare them if you put them in here or tag us. We'll make sure to try to include it in an upcoming OpTech related episode.
awesome. Well, we hope you're all enjoying your football game or, crafting leftovers or really spending time with family and friends. I think this is one of my favorite holidays for that because it's, oftentimes brings in neighbors and strangers together while the weather's still kind of nice,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. So we'll leave you with a quick moment of wonder. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week.